Ready?
Jim, are we set?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting to order.
Move it.
Nope, don't have to. Resolution 1.02. Now I need someone to move it.
Move it now.
Second.
Are there any additions or corrections to this evening's agenda?
Yes, there is. In 6.02, we had a rescinding officer of a resignation, which is a great thing. Lori Moon will be staying with the Fulton City School District. That's the only change.
Any other discussion? All those, Mrs. Perry, I'm a yes.
Mrs. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. Crandall.
Yes.
Mrs. Mainville.
Yes.
Mrs. Albagore.
Yes.
And Mrs. Pappalardo.
Yes.
My apologies. I'm back. Item next is just to let those that are watching this evening that if they wish to contact the board to provide input or feedback, you may do so at clerk@fulton.cnyric.org. That email address is also available on our district website. Item 1.04, please.
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Perry, I'm a yes.
Mrs. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. Crandall.
Yes.
Mrs. Mainville.
Yes.
Mrs. Albagore.
Yes.
And Mrs. Pappalardo.
Yes.
Are there any questions regarding the upcoming meetings that are listed? All right. I'm going to turn the meeting over now to Superintendent Polvino.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Griffin. It's hard to believe we're already into November. Here we are getting into the holiday season. I just want to thank as I always do, our entire staff, faculty, all of our students and families. Hard to believe we're 2 full months into school and we're still growing and evolving and things are going really well. So good to hear. And I'll share a few challenges tonight as we move along through here. But tonight I want to start with acknowledging recognition of our staff, our transportation and our custodial maintenance crews. One of the most important and rewarding responsibilities I have is actually to really recognize the incredible work going on in our schools. And tonight I'm going to talk about, going to start with Al Crump and his entire custodial and maintenance team. They're doing an outstanding job. I made a listing of all the things, but one of the things that has really stuck out to me since I arrived here almost 6 years ago was that the great pride that these teams in every one of our schools and across the district take in their work. And we always see that as our walkthroughs, in early September, but you continue to see that throughout the course of the year. So I want to extend my appreciation to those crews. And just to highlight some of the things, we were ready to roll in September, the pride in their work, the hundreds of new desks assembled. If you haven't been to one of our high school or our junior high, we are ordering hundreds, if not thousands of new desks are coming in, and really they adjust, they go up and down. There's space for the kids' computers, just a much better way to provide flexible seating for our kids and opportunities to expand for our teaching and learning. So great work there. The challenges of COVID, I want to bring that up. One of the things that Ms. Griffin and I often talk about, we talk about all the wonderful things. This is wonderful, but at the same time, it's a challenge. Across the region, across the country, making sure that we have substitutes available and we have a pool of individuals coming forward. In the area of our custodial and maintenance, it's an ongoing challenge as it is in our other areas where we don't have as many substitutes available. And there'll be days we may end up short. And yet these teams are stepping up to ensure that the work is getting done. So I wanted to draw attention to the fact that it's really, COVID has impacted the ability for us to have large pools of candidates out there, whether it's subs or for positions. And it's something Robin and I have talked about. And I think it's something that's important to draw attention to, because the work continues. The work must go on. School will be here tomorrow, and these teams have stepped up. And sometimes you lose sight of that. This is a new factor that we've always had a little bit of a challenge with that in all of our areas, but it's a more significant impact. And yet these teams continue to forge ahead. And I wanted to draw attention. So it's a challenge, but it's also an acknowledgement of some tremendous work that they're doing. We have capital project going on. We have a energy performance contract going on. That work is often being done on second and third shifts. So you have people in your buildings at different times of the day. So you've got that going on. Repairs are being made. They created a centralized testing center over at Lanigan, door number 7. If you're walking around the building over there or familiar, that's going to be the location of our centralized testing for our pool testing, which I'll talk about a little bit later this evening, as well as our symptomatic testing, which I think is going to be a great feature for our families and staff, similar to the molecular testing, where we actually can look at symptomatic individuals and see if they're positive or negative. So allowing us to really return to work or school more quickly in those cases. So more to follow, but that room is fully painted. The heat's working. The plumbing was repaired. I mean, within a week, boom, done. I went over there this morning. I'm like, wow, it was pretty amazing, the transformation that's happened in the last couple of weeks. So thank you to the teams. So, I wrote a little quote down. I was thinking about when we ask, it gets done, and it gets done well. And I want to thank all of our custodial and maintenance and Mr. Crump and his crew for doing an outstanding job and stepping up and always being positive. And we throw lots of curveballs and a lot of things happen, but they do a great job. The other piece tonight, the other group that I wanted to acknowledge were the individuals that begin and end our day for our kids. Majority of our kids ride our transportation each and every day, whether it's our Fulton City School District transportation team or our partnership with Golden Sun. And, I want to extend my appreciation to Al Crump and Greg Henry and his entire crew on the Fulton City side. And then in collaboration, they work with Pat Kinane and his team out at Golden Sun, who's been a partner for over 40 years. And I really want to extend my appreciation. This is a time when school districts throughout the country are experiencing shortages of bus drivers. We've struggled to ensure that kids are here every day. We've been working on that, but nationally there's a bus driver shortage. And once again, our team and the Golden Sun team has been able to make this work, and everybody is sticking with us. And obviously we're monitoring things very closely and looking at ways to ensure for retention and making sure that our team stays strong. So I'm just so impressed. And on top of that, they've made sure that our kids, they did all those deliveries last year. They provided technology devices, you name it. They've stepped up to provide it and provide access. And, even tomorrow, for example, I got a call, there's an adjustment, something going on up at City, BOCES, and we will adjust to ensure that our kids can get to school and get to their program based on that adjustment tomorrow. That's what we do here. And our transportation department steps up every single time and is able to adjust. So once again, our kids are getting here safely. Our safety record is strong, compared to other contractors way out front, does a great job, as well as our Fulton City team. So we are blessed with a really strong team. So I just wanted to acknowledge those groups this evening for really providing a high quality experience and opportunities for our kids. It's the behind the scenes stuff that we don't see, but it is essential to the work that we do each and every day. And you are very much a part of making sure that our kids are here safely and engaged in learning each and every day. So thank you. So I just wanted to acknowledge those groups. Are there any questions or thoughts this evening? Okay. The second part of our second presentation this evening is Mr. Els, and I believe you have a couple of students with you this evening. I see Abigail and I see Reagan this evening. So Mr. Els and team, do you want me to project or will you be projecting this evening, Mr. Els?
That'd be great if you could project.
I will do so, sir.
Super. So thank you for this evening, for letting us come in. I often at the end of each of our seasons, I like to highlight and recap, our sports seasons, of all the accomplishments that were made throughout the season. We wanted to change things up a little bit this year and invite some of more of our senior leaders to go through it, and actually they can do the sports presentation. I think it was Reagan who said she's tired of hearing me talk all the time. So she said she could do a much better job, which I'm sure we'll all agree. So Reagan, why don't you go ahead and lead us off and through our Fulton Fall Sports Athletics 2021.
I would love to, and I also would like to point out that I never said that. I never said that. So basically, I'm going to actually leave it to Abigail Mainville because I believe that she's a devoted athlete, and I want her to take a moment and share everything that the sports are doing. So that's basically all I have to say is Abby Mainville is going to be doing most of it because she is a devoted athlete, and I believe she should be the one that presents this.
Abby, you want to take us off here? Slide 1, we see Raider Pride, and why don't you go ahead and take us, through this?
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Reagan. If Mr. Falvino, could you click on the second slide for me? I can't hear him.
Can't either.
He's muted.
Mr. Polvino, can you click on the second slide for Ms. Mainville?
Oh, there we go.
There we
Awesome.
go.
Thank you. So to start off, we have our varsity cheerleaders this year. We had 19 girls participate, and they placed second at the Fear to Cheer competition 2 weekends ago in Hannibal. From that, we had 2 All-Stars come out of this season, Liz Chrisman and Jade Doran. And they placed second at sectionals this past weekend. And our captains, Alexis Barden and Jade Doran, our 2 seniors this year, or 2 of the very many, led this team to this accomplishment. So congratulations to them this year. Could I go to the third slide? Thank you. Our soccer team, we had 41 girls on the varsity and JV team and 26 on the modified, which is pretty big for comparing to years past. They went to the first round of sectionals this year, and our captains, Claire Broderick and Lydia Marbito, led this team to this accomplishment. We're very proud of our girls this year. They weren't sure of how this season would go, and they came out very strong in the end. Girls tennis, we had 12 girls participate, and it was a very successful year for the girls tennis team because we had 2 girls for the first time in a very long time qualify for sectionals, Miss Maddie Delino and Maddie Hoshkis, and our captains, Caitlin Klingerman and Paige Kingsley, also senior leaders on the team, helped them get to this point. Our boys football team, we had 44 boys for our varsity and JV squad, 32 unmodified. Our captains, Will Patterson, and that says Tyler Patterson. That should say Tyler Mills. I'm sorry. And they won their senior night this year. It was a hard season, but it was a building season for them. We're very proud of everything they've come through this year. Our boys golf team, we had 14 boys on the varsity golf team. Our captain, Lucas Nelson, led the team through many wins this season. We had a section finalist, which was Tyler Mills, I believe. It doesn't say that on there. Not sure why, but they did phenomenal this season. And then the next slide, I think that one's cross country. Oh, yeah. Our girls varsity team had 8 girls, and the boys had 6. So small numbers, but our girls varsity team won league champions this year, and it's very special to our school because it's the first time we've ever done it. We had sectionals this past weekend. Our girls placed 6th, and our boys placed 8th. And Malin Lamana, myself, and Ethan DeMars were captains of this team, and we were very proud of everything we've come through this season, especially with all the low numbers, and we weren't sure if the boys were going to be able to participate at all meets, but they came through at the end. Our boys soccer team, 35 on modified and 44 on varsity and JV. Braden Point, Trevor Hendrickson, Jose Aguilar, and Dalton Hines were our captains. They just missed sectionals this year, but we're going for a very strong year next year. We're looking for section titles next year. Our girls volleyball team, I don't know if you guys have heard, but we've been having a phenomenal year so far. We are league champions for our girls varsity volleyball team. We are still going in sectionals. We actually have a game tomorrow, regionals, 2 hours north, close to Canada. It's the first time in 12 years we've been section champs. We had 38 girls on varsity. I'm not sure how many on JV, but we also moved a lot of the JV girls around this year. Semi-regionals, yeah. Captains Lydia Gelati, Joanne LeVay, Mackenzie Cohen, and Tessa Galvin. They had senior leaders specifically just to make everything more fair to the seniors, because they had a lot of consistent girls putting an equal amount of effort throughout their entire program, which is something I personally think is really awesome. They have a lot to be proud of this season, and I'm looking forward to watching them next year. Or not next year, tomorrow. Sorry. And for the first time ever, we had the Raider Bowl, which is where we had our junior class and our senior class go up against each other in a mini football game. Special thanks to Lydia Gelati and Lydia Marabito putting together the entire thing after our Spirit Week. Was very exciting. We only did it for about 20 minutes, and I heard Mrs. Parker's talking about maybe wanting to do it a little longer next year if given opportunities, but there was a lot of positive things that came out of it, and our students had a lot of fun. And in the last slide is just more pictures Reagan and I took and other people around the community of just people enjoying their sports, enjoying the time we have with each other, because it's just really special, especially this year, since last year it wasn't quite the same. I feel like students are taking advantages of what they have and the people they have around them more than ever, and it's just a really special thing to be a part of. I'm very proud to say I was a part of everything that happened this year. And that's all I got to say.
So, Mr. Ellis, anything to add?
Perfect. So thank you very much, Reagan and Abby, for putting that together. I appreciate you taking the time and the energy to put that in. They went through and took pictures throughout the season. So for them, when I asked them to assist me, they were able to jump right in and being able to add slides in there. And they had some of the personal touches of conversations with some of the teammates that I might not have had. So thank you for putting that together. I really appreciate that. Just a couple highlights I want to put in there is our volleyball team is still participating. So we are in the state regionals. The state regional tomorrow is in Ogdensburg, just up outside of, as Abby said, Canada. So we're going to head there tomorrow with an expected win. We will then travel to Gloversville on Friday to play Burnt Hills. And that game just got changed to a 7:00 start. So very exciting time for our student athletes, for our volleyball players. First time, as Abby said, in 12 years that we've gone this far. So it's great to see. The girls are super excited to be going. And so they had practice tonight, and they're just, going over the final details. So they'll be heading out early tomorrow in order to get up to the game for a 5:00 start. So the other part that I wanted to kind of highlight, a couple of things I wanted to highlight. Usually we do the scholar athlete at this time. Our presentation this year is a little bit earlier, and we don't have all the grades yet. So we don't have that submitted. But as soon as we do, that is one of our highlights we like to post, and we'll update you at a future board meeting on that. Just a few other things. The Raider Bowl that we did, that was completely driven by our student body. They came, met with me back in June with this idea of trying to put this together. They then met again with me this summer. That was all student driven. It was student ideas. They put that together, organized it, and it was run very, very well. It was very well organized, and the kids had a ball. It's one of those things where people, talk about the pep rally, and there's certain items that was by far the most talked about item, and still is today, about our pep rally this year, is how much fun those girls had out on the field. So, and the last part that I want to leave off with tonight is, as we're going through these pictures that Abby and Reagan took, all the smiles of our kids out there participating. So it's great to see that. And I have it up on my other screen here, the Raider Pride one, and every single picture is kids laughing, kids smiling, and just enjoying being together with their friends. So that's great. Anybody have any questions?
I have a really quick question. We're talking about transportation, we're talking about Raider Pride, and it's so great to go to these games and see all the kids together and enjoying their time and just creating that close environment that they just didn't have last year. Is there any way that when the girls win tomorrow, maybe we could try to get a spectator bus for the kids for Friday?
For Friday?
Just throwing it out there. We have great transportation, just like something to think about. I know that the kids have been asking me, and I said that maybe I could just throw it out there, something to think about. Okay. Anyway, something else for you to do, Mr. Ells, because you're not busy at all, right?
That's right. That's okay. I can
Right.
definitely look into that and see.
That'd be great.
Yes.
I'm sure they'd appreciate it anyway.
Absolutely.
Thank you this evening for the presentation. It's always best to hear from our students, and because you're all the reasons why we're here. So you did a great job representing our students this evening. So thank you. With that, we'll move into our next section, which is our professional development update, November 5th, 2021. We actually, last Friday, had a great professional development day. Mr. Carroll, can you take us through? We're going to take you to the website for the day. We provided the link, but you can actually see what we had that day. And once again, in only the Fulton way, we were ambitious. But I will say, from my perspective, people were in great spirits. I had some great conversations and lots of smiling, and they had the opportunity to see people together, and we were able to really focus in on a lot of different things, great conversations. So Mr. Carroll, could you talk about that?
Sure. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Yes, it was a busy day and a busy several weeks of planning leading up to our November 5th Staff Development Day. It's become cliche to talk about this being a year of challenges, a couple of years of challenges. One specifically in relation to professional development is the shortage of substitute teachers. In any given year, with updates to curricular resources, updates to our improvement plans, there is the need for very targeted professional development to specific groups of our staff members. And usually we're able to provide that professional development through half day or even less in some cases, substitute coverage within school days. This year, with that substitute coverage really not being as available, we needed to take advantage of the November 5th day to meet many of those needs. Those are trainings that our teachers really need, have been asking for and waiting for, and we needed an opportunity to provide them. Simultaneously, our staff this year more than ever needs chances to really attend to their social emotional well-being. So we had a tall order, we being the professional development committee, in outlining a vision for the day. And in terms of a theme, what we realized is that we needed to provide everyone with what we often call win time for our students, that being what I need now. So what resulted are very specific individual schedules. And what we're looking at right now is our district's professional development website that our instructional coach for technology, Dan Sherman, kind of curates with our coaches. And Dan and the coaches prepared a web page that includes everything that our teachers and teaching assistants, psychologists, nurses, all of our different roles, where they could access all of the information and resources for this past Friday. We created 22 different targeted professional development training opportunities. Okay, and you can see a sample of the very specific roles that these sessions were developed for, these schedules, really, not only sessions. So I'll give you a couple examples. We'll take a look at the day of classroom teacher or consultant teacher in grades 3 through 5 would have experienced. First, they had a session on their EQUIP assessment tool, which is an assessment tool that complements our core math program in 1st through 5th grade. This is a training that we've all really been hoping for. This got all of our 1st through 5th grade teachers professionally developed in utilizing that program. This is a good example of the way the day was designed, because you'll see, while we have that specific professional development training session, we also balanced the day with these What I Need Now sessions that we designed around some adult SEL topics of applying new learning. So in other words, we wanted to give folks a chance to not only have that formal professional development session, but be able to collaborate with colleagues afterwards if they choose and really dig into it. Engage. When we talk about engage, what we offered was engaging in community service. Engaging in community service is a trauma-sensitive practice. We've learned a great deal about trauma-sensitive practices over the years. This was another opportunity from which staff members could choose with attention to their social emotional needs, or connect. And when we say connect, what we're talking about is connecting with one another in a community circle opportunity. So we'll give you a peek at what that menu looks like. So these apply, engage, or connect opportunities, which, as I said, included community service, community circles, and also several topics that our staff members themselves contributed. We surveyed our staff and asked them, we know that you need training such as EQUIP. We know that you need these specific trainings in your curricular areas. We know that some of you need CPR or AED training. We know that some of you need reboot in TCIS training. But what else specifically do you and your colleagues need? And they told us. Some wanted to work with their PLCs in developing proficiency scales, so we provided them a space to do that. Some wanted to explore the rewards reading intervention program, for example. So as our staff told us those different topics that they simply needed time and space to get together with their colleagues to dig into those resources, we provided the space for them to do that. Actually, here's a couple nice photos of, I think that's Mr. Bartlett engaging in community service with beautifying some trash cans, and a shot of wind time where we see a PLC collaborating in the commons area at GRB. Give you a glimpse of a high school schedule. Let's see, we'll choose world languages, for example. Here, in terms of a training that this group needed, that we'd struggled to find time with. They had their introduction to the culturally responsive framework. The group has made a goal of um, of helping students to achieve the seal of biliteracy, and they're developing a plan for that at this time. And also another training that our high school staff all needed was in the facilitation of community circles. And that's part of those restorative practices that we're building into our school culture. So this was, as Mr. Palvino said, it was a really large undertaking. It actually resulted, when we put together all of the different interests of our staff members, 278 individualized schedules based on those different 22 different professional development trainings and 18 different apply, engage, connect opportunities. And so many people worked together to put together the day. Our entire director team, our instructional coaching team, our interdisciplinary instructional specialists really worked long hours over the past couple weeks and finalizing all of the details of this planning. Our principals and assistant principals did a great job of participating with their staffs and encouraging them towards the opportunities that they really needed. And of course, we couldn't have done it without our custodial staff and our food service staff, who made sure that everyone was comfortable and safe, and our technology department, who outfitted dozens of rooms with the tech needs that made the day work. So it was a large undertaking, and we were able to thread a lot of different needles in terms of need. And so we're really grateful to all who participated. And Mrs. Geithner, I don't know if you'd like to add anything to that, if I missed anything on the.
No, I think you did a nice job of covering all of the important elements. And I think that, that the objective was really for us to be as responsive as we could to the needs of our staff and provide a variety of opportunities for them to reconnect with each other. And obviously the food trucks were a big hit. So
That's right.
we learned some lessons. We learned some things that went really well, and we learned some things that we will make adjustments to going forward. But we appreciated all of the hard work and effort of everybody who made the day possible.
Can't believe I forgot to mention the food trucks.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll and Ms. Geithner. I just want to extend my appreciation publicly. It was amazing. You think about coordinating any event, and when you coordinate a 6-hour event for close to 300 people, and you're really trying to cover a diverse range of needs, there were so many people involved in this and then in participating in the day. So that's hundreds of people from beginning to end to pull this event off in a very positive way. I'm looking forward to the feedback data. I know we sent a survey out to the staff, so we're getting that feedback in. The initial results I was seeing were quite positive. As Ms. Geithner indicated, we'll take all that feedback, and you always strive to do even better next time. But I thought it seemed like a very positive event. So thank you to everyone that was a part of making this day a positive one. So I look forward to future days and opportunities. They're very valuable. We don't get time to spend with our staffs very often, and we have to really focus on having a targeted days that provide and support the needs that our staff has. So thank you for all of your efforts on behalf of our kids, because ultimately it all comes down to our kids. So thank you. Any questions for the team? Great, thank you. The next piece this evening is hard to believe, but we're talking about budget. And so this is always, it's kind of always this meeting, we talk about this. So I feel good that we're on schedule. That's always a good thing. Let me see. So can you see a draft timeline there on the screen? Ms. Griffin, you can see something there. Just trying to get you can see us there. All right. So what I'm going to highlight this evening is the annual draft of our timeline of the 22-23 annual budget vote and Board of Election, which actually culminates here at the end, which will happen on May 18th. So everything leads to actually the 17th with ratification on the 18th, but the 17th is the budget vote and the board election. So let's go back here to the top just to highlight this draft calendar and looking for any feedback. So as you
Brian,
said, yes.
Brian, you might want to make it a little bit bigger if people, you want people able to read.
Sure. So tell me when it falls off the screen.
That's good. You're good right there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Great catch. For me, it looked perfect at this end. So thank you. Tonight's the board meeting. We're talking about this draft calendar. And you'll see in the right-hand column, we're going to do a little something different this year for the budget process. We're starting, actually at our last meeting, if you remember, we actually highlighted our strategic coherence plan innovation. And what we're going to do is each meeting after this, and you can see them here on the right, that will focus on one part of the plan. And each of those plans will actually tie the dollars that are going from our federal funds and our general funds. So you can actually start to see the connections to each part. And if you remember a previous presentation, we were actually able to show the percentage of the 100% of the 14 million, for example, with the federal funds that's actually being allocated. So that'll be the tie. One of the questions that the board had asked previously was, how do you tie all of these innovative things and the things that we're doing as far as additional things through the federal, but also what are those main staples, those main components that are very much of our daily operations and have been. And this will be our way to tie that back. So this is a little different approach. So in the end, you'll have hopefully a nice picture of what we're doing across those 6 areas. And we'll be able to supplement that, for example, right here on January 11th. That's that annual elementary, secondary ed, education and student support services, the demographics, things like that. And it times up nicely with the instruction. So the idea is to create those coherent connections that where budget really ties back to all the planning and the design and what we're delivering each and every day. So that's the mindset that we have. So the idea at the next one meeting, we'll talk about the draft calendar, make sure that if there's any questions coming out of this evening, make any adjustments. Talk about at the next meeting when we want to schedule a tentative budget workshop. I'm thinking perhaps January 18th to finalize our FCSD budget parameters. At that meeting, that times in hopefully nicely. The governor's budget should come out somewhere between the 18th and the 20th. So hopefully if we time that right, that may be a perfect evening where if everything comes together that evening. If not, we finalize our budget parameters going into the year. That you've heard a majority of the plan at that point. You would have had 4 sections to that point. So really give us an idea of our budget parameters and set us up nicely for these other 2, which will be social, emotional, developmental health and the strategic coherence plan, family engagement components. So you'll see that as we move forward. You also notice in this budget where we have this calendar, the budget workshop, but you also see on February 1st, and we can always schedule budget workshops or the stakeholder budget committees. We'd like to reinstitute those. We began those last year. It's something that had been done in a couple of years previous, actually, I think prior to me arriving, but I thought it's a great idea. So we're going to start those again, those stakeholder budget committees. You'll continue on. You'll see that we put some key dates. Our tax levy limit has to be discussed with the resolution on the 22nd of February. That's in regulation. So we need to do that. You'll see us move on throughout the course of the winter and then early spring into here. So we're still waiting on the when the parent university date may be. We want to add that public budget forum there. It was a great opportunity. Put some important dates on there for the board's reference. It's school board candidates nominating petitions are available starting March 29th. So Ms. Perry, the clerk of the board, when she was going through, we put some of those important dates in the calendar as well. April 1st, first election legal notice are posted. We have a board meeting on the 5th. And what I wanted to talk with the board about was we have a scheduled meeting the 5th. Our next meeting was scheduled for the 25th. However, the property tax report card has to be in before the 25th. So we need to do an adoption. And so what it makes sense to do is to add a regular meeting for April 19th. And then what we'll do is we'll come, and then at that evening, hopefully we'll be doing the tentative FCSD budget adoption. Hopefully we're ready to roll. All the numbers come in, they're working nicely, and we end up with a strong budget for the board to consider for adoption on the 19th. And then we'll also adopt our school property tax report card, which has to be done as well. And then on the 25th, which is a Monday, we'll have a short special board meeting, which we need to do to adopt all the school districts in the county have to adopt the city countywide budget vote. So all the school districts do that. So that would be a short meeting to adopt that component district budget. So I'm recommending that we add an April 19th meeting to really have our normal regular budget meeting and regular board meeting that evening. That allows us to then set us up nicely to lead us into the next couple of weeks, which will be getting our budget newsletter put together. We'll do the draw, a little bit different in a small city school district. The draw for the Board of Education candidate ballot order happens on the 28th at 9 a.m. and the final draft letter to go to city. We'll follow that up with our FCSD Public Budget Forum at 6 p.m. on May 3rd. On May 6th, we'll mail the budget newsletter, and the budget information will be then disseminated to the public in that formal type of way that's required. Our fourth legal notice goes up. There's a couple other dates there. The campaign expenditures are due for the second one. The budget vote occurs in the budget election on the 17th, and then ratification at a special board meeting on the 18th, hopefully ratifying a budget that has met our community's needs and has their support, as well as any Board of Education election results as well. And then finally, the third campaign expenditures. So, Ms. Griffin, is there any discussion or any board members, any discussion in particular? I wanted to draw attention to the April 19th date and the addition, which I think makes us have a much stronger timeline as well and meet the required dates from the state.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for asking. And I want to make certain that everybody understands that we really have to have the 19th meeting in order to meet our obligations. It's really not a choice. It's a need.
Correct.
So I just want to say that very clearly. In years past, the BOCES meeting has lined up where we could do both on the same night, but this year it does not line up.
Where does the 19th fall in terms of the spring break?
I would switch to my count. I believe it's the week after, Mr. Cordone. The
Okay.
April break is the week before.
Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions regarding the change with the 19th? And do we need to do anything with that, Brian? It just give notice, right?
We would put notice. We would add it to our website with our calendar of events or calendar of board meetings.
Mhm.
And obviously, we follow the same procedures that we always do, which is the public notice that we do for every meeting, so on and so forth.
And so because the budget is outlined by dates and everything's predicated on counting back from the vote,
Correct.
and certain things happen. So that's why Brian recommended the 19th. And as I say, it's a recommendation, but we really don't have a choice.
And it makes sense. I think one of the things that is never good to do is press up right to the last minute trying to get things in and done. And this allows us a little bit more flexibility the week ahead. And just in case, I mean, I'm not anticipating, I'm hearing, knock on wood, that some of the things that have been promised in last year's budget are going to be in place for this year's budget, getting, that formula funded. But again, you never know. It's only November. And so come January, we'll get a pretty good feel for where our governor in her executive budget will be coming from. And then obviously we all focus and we do a lot of work between then and April 1st. And hopefully a balanced budget comes from New York State by April 1st, which is by statute. And then hopefully we'll just be doing some final tweaking and the numbers will be what we anticipate. what we will do at the next board meeting, we'll just finalize it. If there's any, that's what we normally do every year. We present a draft at this board meeting, and then if there are any concerns or questions, we can take them up. This is a living document, but I think I appreciate all the work that Jean sat with me, and we went through these line by line, date by date, and I believe we captured this a little bit more expanded than you've seen in the past. It just lays things out a bit more.
Brian, in keeping with keeping all the strategic coherence items on here, could you just add for the next one, just put back in the innovation and when that report was in October?
Yep. Ms. Perry, can you make a note of that? I'll write it down as well. So what I'll do is we can add October 26th to the calendar, and we'll add that as a block above, and we'll add that we did the strategic coherence plan innovation.
Thanks. It makes sense to have it all together. Thank you.
Yep. Just writing that down as well. 10/26. Highlight it on the calendar. Are there any other questions? Alrighty. Let me see here. The next component is another adjustment to our instructional calendar. Hopefully this works. Ms. Griffin, once again, is it large enough? Tell me when. Pretty good? All right. So I know we made an adjustment at our last meeting. We added or 2 meetings ago, we added the 4th and the 12th. We were looking at spring conferences, student-led conferences, what we needed to have in place to meet some contractual types of things. We're recommending an addition to the calendar, April 8th, as being a K through 12, pre-K through 12 early release day. That'll allow us to ensure that we're able to do flexibility with our student-led conferences. So I know that this will allow us to take care of those things. I believe Ms. Geithner, is it June? You give me that final date is when all the conferences will be completed by?
Tentatively, we're planning for June 13th. We're still
June
working through some of those elements in an agreement with our Teachers Association.
Okay. I couldn't remember if it was the 8th or the 13th. So thank you.
13th of June.
So this will allow us to finalize that agreement and get all of our conferences underway to make sure that all of our needs for our parents are there. And it gives flexibility to do those before, after school. So it allows us some flexibility as well as on those half days. So a lot of flexibility to provide and address parents' needs. And I think this is a year where it's very important, where parents had the opportunities to speak with their children's teachers. We've had requests for Google Meets and in person. So this allows us a great deal of flexibility to be able to get that done. So looking forward to the outcomes of that. Are there any questions with respect to that? There is a resolution this evening.
Is that color going to change on the 8th?
Yes, this
Will
color
that
will match
confuse
this
people?
color right here.
Okay.
I guess I'm not sure, pinkish. I'm not
A
sure.
salmon, whatever. But yeah, just so people aren't confused.
We will match the color. I think when we
Thank
put
you.
it on there, we didn't match the color. We didn't get the right shade right there.
Right.
So we will match
the
because
difference
yellow
is-
is our day of right there. So we will match the salmon. I'm sorry, that's the color. Salmon.
The
We will
difference
match
is
the
one
salmon.
was a K6 and one is a K12. That was the difference in the color coding.
Oh,
So
is that what it is? A K-12? All right.
yeah, so this one's a K-12. We can adjust the color. It's a little bit less, so we will make sure that it's differentiated. It
Maybe
is
it's the
less
light
yellow.
I'm sitting in. It just doesn't look the same, but thank you.
Yep. So we will draw attention to that and obviously
Yep.
communicate that hopefully after a successful resolution this evening. And that'll allow us to finalize the agreements that we need to take care of and get moving forward for our children and families. Any questions with respect to the calendar? That was a great one. Okay. All right, let me see. Stop presenting. And finally, the last update is with respect to COVID testing. Never thought when I became a superintendent that I'd be dealing with testing and medical, the health and medical that we're doing. The other side of my family enjoys that aspect of their life. So it's been an interesting experience for me. So I want to give you some great updates. We've gotten 1,500 of the Binax Now in, which are the antigen tests. We're going to be utilizing those with Golden Sun and working with them as their pool testing. Want to try to really keep making sure we can keep them separate and not get into pools. The ID Now, the machines have arrived. Yoo-hoo. That is for symptomatic testing. I think that's going to make us a bit more unique here in Fulton. The ID Now, my understanding, when you go onto the Walgreens website, because I took a look one day, the ID Now is a molecular test. We're going to be able to use that. I talked to Dr. Morgan. That's a symptomatic. We're going to use that for our symptomatic. So, for example, if Brian was sent down to the nurse's office and I had a couple of symptoms, we send our kids home, and what we say to them is, and Mr. Ells, jump in, because this is kind of I'm learning it, but this is your expertise. So if you want to talk a little bit about what could happen.
You bet. So when a student presents to the nurse's office, if they have one of the 14 symptoms, signs or symptoms of COVID, they're sent home. They are not able to return until they have a negative COVID test, or they wait out their 10-day quarantine period. So those are the only two ways really to get back into school. One of the problems that we are running into as anybody who's ever been COVID tested is when you go get tested, you are waiting around for a length of time, sometimes 3, 4 or more hours. And then you could wait up to 2 or 3 days before your results actually get read and sent back to you. So that's a lot of lost instruction time, especially if you have, say, a runny nose today and you go get tested. And if you wait 3 or 4 days, for that test to come back and it's negative, you just lost all of that time. So just trying to get people to get out there and get tested will hopefully, limit the amount of people that might come to school with symptoms and being able to, be able to correct that problem before it even begins. So putting a little bit more effort through testing to prevent the problem before it actually becomes the problem.
So thank you, Chris. I think, so good news is the 2 machines have arrived. You have to have the test to put in them. So the machines arrived, that's half the battle. So now we just got to make sure the tests are coming in. I know that we have, I believe 500 to 600 of them that have been ordered to come in with those as well. So the idea here is to expedite return to work and return to school for those individuals that would qualify for that, where they're symptomatic, but the symptoms are declining, but we can then test, and then we can get those results in our own space. So good news is the machines have arrived. I wasn't sure where we were at about a week ago with those. So, because there's supply and demand issues. So the question is, can we now get our hands on those tests? So that's the next step there. And then the Affinity Assure, that's the pool testing that we're going to be doing. We have received, there's 2 great big boxes out here in my office. Those have arrived. We are establishing and getting ready to start pool testing next week, the week of the 15th. I know that Ms. Geithner was finalizing a letter that'll be going out to those individuals that this is for staff and faculty that are unvaccinated, that we have to do the testing. So we're ready and poised to do that. We will share that correspondence as soon as it's finalized. I wasn't quite sure if it was 100% done this afternoon, so I didn't attach it to your daily update, but we will. We anticipate that going out in the next day or 2, I believe, as we finalize some things. Ms. Geithner did a really nice job summarizing some things in there. And then just so you know, the testing location, and thank you, I mentioned it with our custodians, maintenance team. We're going to be at Lanigan, door number 7. If you drive around Lanigan, every door is actually numbered at our schools, and you'll see door number 7. That room is fully painted. There's a door to the access to the outside. There's now a window in that door that our maintenance team put in. There's a bathroom in there, so the nurses that are going to be working in there and helping us will have access to sinks and other facilities necessary. There's an access in, and then a person can go back out. It'll be all done by appointments. Pool testing, or when we get the symptomatic testing set up, those will be by appointment. So you'll never have multiple people there, so it should flow nicely. Fresh coat of paint in there. The heat's up and working. Drops for the computers. Desks were going in there today, workstations. So it's really come together nicely. I know Chris and I were talking. We've done the trainings. I participated in the Affinity Assure last week. I think we had 3 nurses on Thursday that participated. Is that right, Chris? Yep. That was an online hour-long, in kind of live, if you will, synchronous opportunity for that training. Chris and I will look into the training now that the machine has arrived for the ID now. Just a question of when those tests come in. With that, we'll set up the testing. They didn't want to do the test, or they didn't want to do the training until the machines had arrived. So that's happening quickly. The Binax Now testing is actually an online quick testing or training as well. And Chris and his team have been trained in that as well. We used that test last year for prom. So I guess in general, things are coming nicely. I think the one piece that has a little bit of a frustration is we're still working on a finalized contract with the county, to get some things done. I will say I pushed a few weeks ago. What I've learned, if anything I've learned over the years, is get the lawyers in the same room to do the talking, to deal with some of the legal types of things. That is happening late this afternoon. All the districts shared their legal team's information. They're going to be meeting with the county attorneys. Hopefully this will put this thing to rest so we can finalize the work. And that's for really access to the funding that was provided to the county of Oswego and other counties across the state. For us, we can't wait till the contracts were written. So obviously, worst case scenario, the only test that we're paying for is the ID now, right now. But I think that maybe that test that'll pay for itself, because substitutes won't. It hopefully will release some of that costs. We do have some additional costs. We're adding some nursing services. Worst case scenario, our ARP. But bottom line is, I'm hoping this contract's taken care of, and we'll have access to the $538,000 that's been allocated to the Fulton City School District from the $4.1 million that was allocated to the county of Oswego.
Brian, who is doing the testing for us, and how are they being trained?
Yep. So, Chris, do you want to speak to that?
Yep.
Go from there.
So, to begin with, we have 3 of our nurses that have stepped up and that are being trained. So, as Mr. Polvino said, we had a training last week that I attended, Mr. Polvino, and then we had some nurses do a later training, and these are 3 nurses that are already within our district.
And it'll be after hours. I'm sorry, Chris.
Yep.
It's after hours. So I know if I were Mr. Cordone, I'd be thinking, are they doing this during the day?
Correct.
And so I wanted to just say we have a whole schedule we'll share with you. And then you want to add that we're hiring too. Chris down the road will have open during the day then.
Yep. So we are hiring a new nurse to be able to work with the testing and working with some support for her as well. And that testing, it will be going on throughout the day. But her hours are going to be shifted a little different than a school day. We're looking at like an 11 to 6 type of schedule for her. With the testing being focused from 2 to 5:30, around about that.
So we didn't want to actually add more. Some districts are having their nurses during the day doing the testing as they're serving children as well. We recognize the fact, and one of the things that we also felt, we wanted people with a bit of a medical background to be assisting and leading our testing. We also felt that we wanted to make sure that we maintain the high quality of service that our nurses provide in the schools. And there's only so much resource that you have, and you start to spread it too thin. So I think I know Jerry and Chris have been doing some interviewing, and I've heard some very strong candidates had applied, and we've had a nice pool of nurses and LPNs stepping up and looking at possibly serving with our nurses. So again, you heard about our nurses at the last meeting, and once again they're stepping up, and Chris and his team. So, and then with Golden Sun, Chris is going to be going out there next week, and we'll be working with the Golden Sun team as well. This includes, Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, substitute teachers that aren't vaccinated, contractors like Golden Sun. I mean, anybody that would be in contact with kids at all have to go through this. In fact, I think I saw something from Section 3 the other day with respect to referees and things as well. So there's a lot of pieces to this, but I think our plan is comprehensive. I think it's medically centralized. In other words, I like the fact that we've got medical professionals very involved in this. I think it's important. And this is, to me, something that can keep us very focused, our kids in schools, And then what we'll do down the road, once we iron out all these pieces, the reason why we really wanted to target next week, it gave us about another week and a half with Thanksgiving the following week to make sure if there's any pieces we want to tweak and upgrade. And that's what we do here. We implement, then we make an adjustment based on what we have. It's the way we do business here. And then in the couple weeks after that, we can look at if we're required to do so. If we need to look at pool testing for kids, we can mobilize and we'll expand to do that. But we wanted to get that component in. And then the other piece I wanted to mention, you may have seen in Oswego County News today, the online one, they had an article about a number of districts that are starting vaccination clinics. I'm like, we're not on there. When I read the article, though, all of those school districts are affiliated with Connext Care. We are not. We are with Oswego Health. We are actually doing, Chris, if you want to speak to that, I believe it's the 19th.
Yep. So we're going to be doing our 5 to 11 on November 19th, with the follow-up appointment is going to be on December 3rd.
And our partner is who?
Oswego Health, Department of Health.
Yeah. So we had great success with the Department of Health back in all last year when we were doing, actually this year when we were doing all the COVID vaccinations. So I'm really happy we're partnering with the Department of Health. They did an excellent job. We did over 11,000 vaccinations, I believe.
Yes.
This spring and into the summer, and looking forward to providing this opportunity if families so choose. We're providing that opportunity for them as well.
Brian,
Yes.
can you, I guess, talk to the fact there's an article floating around on social media about the vaccinations for children, and it says that school districts will be doing it. Can you, in the article, it said it's going to be mandatory with no consents. Can someone speak to that? So I know.
Wow. I haven't
spoke
seen
my
that article.
opinion on
Chris,
it.
chime in, but I will tell you, when we say we're doing them in schools, we're doing them just like we did all spring. We're providing opportunities, a location for families to come. And in our case, Chris spoke to, it's the Department of Health. And those are the health professionals. And you notice the theme here tonight, that I believe that health professionals are the ones that should be leading these types of events, whether it's testing, whether it's vaccinations. Probably comes from years of growing up kind of in those models a little bit. And I firmly believe that. I want medical professionals doing that. So it's not school district. We're offering the opportunities and the locations. Chris, would you add anything to that?
Consent, correct?
I'm sorry, Lynn, what was that?
There needs to be a consent from
Well,
the parent.
for the students 5 to 11 years old, they have to be present with an adult.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So yeah, there is no mandatory. There is no forced vaccinations.
I've had a couple people ask me the question, so I just
No.
kind of
So
want to.
we're just like we did last spring.
Yep.
We're just providing the space. Department
Absolutely.
of Health is coming in and doing
I
that.
knew that, but I wanted
Yep.
it.
And it's parent choice. I mean, let's say it is parent. It's not a mandate right now it's parent choice. And I know I spoke to Ms. Geithner earlier this afternoon, but we will obviously send that information out to our families with all of the information for them to digest and make that decision for their families. Some may choose to be doing it through their doctors. There's many different places you can get it, but one of the things that New York State had reached out to school districts and had a survey done, would you be interested in doing that? And as you saw, I mentioned before at the earlier part of this conversation, I brought up that I saw an article, I think it's 4 or 5 county schools are providing clinics and opportunities for families in their school districts. Fulton is following suit. And once again, it's families' decisions to whether or not they're going to do that at this point in time.
I have 2 quick questions for you, Mr. Ellis. Will the Department of Health be doing any of the boosters in our district as well, or is it just the first initial and?
So they're not doing boosters at this time, just because boosters are readily available at your doctor's office, your primary care, or even most of the drugstores as well.
Okay. And then for our students, as time goes down, and they may decide not to become vaccinated, Do you think that they will also fall into the same kind of pool testing as our staff has to do, or just we'll continue the protocol of symptoms, you go home, we follow the rubric?
Right. I don't, at this time, I don't see us, being able to do the pool testing for our unvaccinated students. We don't have the support or the mass quantities that would undertake in order to be able to get that many students tested each week. I can't see that happening.
And one of the things that I agree
anytime
with Chris, I mean, I think one of the challenges is that the state had talked about that 10% piece. I know the counties to our south are doing some tests. It's been very much quieter this year. You used to hear a lot about it last year, but I know that was one of the pieces that if you look back into what Governor Hochul had put out, she had talked about the testing of unvaccinated staff and faculty. But also there's that piece around testing students. Right now, we're not ready to get up to capacity to do that. But if that's your requirement, let's say our figures stayed in the high range, which Oswego still is. Oswego County is still in that high rate. I haven't looked on the last 24, 48 hours. Often Ms. Geithner will tell me the percentage, where she'll let me know, but I haven't looked at it in the last 48. But the county, and I know when I was hearing from other school districts today, they're seeing a little bit of an uptick, in what they're seeing out there. So I think people are starting to move inside more. There's more interactions with families. So I think Chris is right. We're not ready for the capacity, but 10% for us would be 300 and change. We're actually entering about 150 to 200, depending on the week, of the tests that are actually coming in. So how Chris talked about symptomatic going and getting tested at, let's say, a pharmacy or whatever the case may be. I have to enter those into the database that I do every day. For the positives, I enter that into the state database every day. Anybody can go look at that. But we also enter the number of tests. And a couple of weeks ago, I was hitting 180, 190. I'm like, we're already putting in almost 200. And if we're going to do our own ID now, we may be able to head 300 a week just with what's coming in. So, because that would be about 10% actually. So we'll look at that right now. We'll get the faculty and staff, and we'll see what the direction is. I know most of the districts are focused on. For me, what's more important is the unvaccinated faculty staff that we need to address to meet, that requirement. But I think it'll also be helpful. And then the other piece will be that I believe the ability for us to support our symptomatics is important. The county had the option of doing what they call stay in school test, I think is what it's called. If you may have seen that on the NISBA updates every day, the NISBA eclipse that come out every day. There's an article in the Albany area where it's South Glen Falls, I believe it was, is doing a pilot. And what they're doing is they're having families come every single day for 7 days and doing a Binax Now 15-minute test. So you come before school, you get tested. If you're negative, you get to stay in school 7 days in a row. So our county does not supporting that based on something that I've saw. So I'm glad we've gone down the ID now. I think it's a better strategy. It's a molecular test. It gives a better idea at this point in time. So that's where we're at. As you see, we've got a couple of different opportunities, irons in the fire. Things are coming together. And I think we've taken a good approach, and I'm hoping that this contract with the county also is cleaned up sooner than later, hopefully within the week. So a lot of information out there, and they're great questions this evening. Are there other questions? And with that, that's the conclusion of the superintendent's report this evening. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Polvino. All right. Item 4.01, our warrants. Would someone move it?
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Perry, yes.
Mrs. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mrs. Mainville,
Yes.
Mrs. Albagor,
Yes.
Mrs. Pepelardo,
Yes.
and Mr. Cordone.
Yes.
Item 5.01, approve Committee on Special Education recommendations.
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Perry, I'm a yes.
Mrs. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mrs. Mainville,
Yes.
Mrs. Albagor,
Yes.
Mrs. Papalardo,
Yes.
and Mr. Cordone.
Yes.
Item 5.02, approve the change to the instructional calendar.
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Perry, I'm a yes.
Mrs. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mrs. Mainville,
Yes.
Mrs. Albagor,
Yes.
Mrs. Papalardo,
Yes.
and Mr. Cordone.
Yes.
And I ask my colleagues, are you interested in batching items 6.01 through 6.15? And they are all personnel issues.
Move it. Second.
Any discussion on any of those items? Mrs. Perry, I'm a yes.
Mrs. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mrs. Mainville,
Yes.
Mrs. Albagor,
Yes.
Mrs. Papalardo,
Yes.
and Mr. Cordone.
Yes.
Board forum. Reagan, I'd like to start with you.
I would love to start.
Great.
I want to thank all of the staff, especially bus drivers and custodial. And I also want to say great job to all of our presenters, but I specifically would like to give a good job to Abby Mainville. I think it's really important for students to get a chance to come to the board and give presentations, and I think she did a great job. And I hope with future meetings, we give students the ability to do that kind of stuff again. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Great. Up next, Mr. Cordone.
I apologize. It was my turn this evening to have technological difficulties, but I'm glad that I was able to finally join you. Likewise, thanks for the reports, and especially on fall sports. We really don't have anything else, so thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Lyons.
I think everybody has said everything that I really wanted to say, and I guess the only thing I want to talk about is the COVID, how we are doing such a great job on keeping abreast of it. Mr. Els, thank you. I've said it before, but you're doing a great job with all of it and keeping our kids in school. So thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Mainville.
I too would like to thank our custodial staff for making our school so welcoming and safe and clean for our students, and for them taking on the COVID testing that's about to start. I think it's a really great thing, and for Fulton, and I know that it's an added responsibility to them. So thank you for that. Thank you for the presentation, Reagan and Abby. I thought that was great. Thank you to Mr. Els for helping out with such a successful fall season. Our Raider Pride is there. The kids are definitely excited. I've been attending some games. They're reconnecting, making memories, and that's just going to help them in the classroom moving forward. So I'm really excited for that. And all of their accomplishments, we had a lot of first times this season, like first time league champions, first time going to sectionals and going so far. And that says a lot about persevering through such a hard time. So that, I mean, we should really be proud of our kids for making that happen. I know that I am. So thank you.
Mrs. Papalardo.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
So I want to second the bus transportation, if we can do that, for our volleyball team. I have fond memories of our hockey team going to states and taking a bus to Troy, and it was awesome, and it was a really good experience. So if that's a possibility, then I definitely think we should, jump on the opportunity. Want to thank our students for presenting. I don't think Abby is still on with us, but Jen, she did a great job, and it is very difficult to talk to a group of people, and I think that prepares our kids for what they're going to do later in life. So good job to her. Want to thank the teachers, all the teachers preparing for their conferences this week or last week and this week. We had our first conference for my middle daughter, and it went very well. And I appreciate the opportunity to do that either virtually or in person. I think that kind of helps parents out. And even outside of COVID, I think that that's a good thing to continue. So, and that's all that I have.
Thank you. Mr. Crandall.
Everybody's pretty much said everything, so I agree with everyone. That's it.
Thank you. Mrs. Abelgore.
Mr. Ells, I'm sorry you lost your spotlight tonight, but those kids are fantastic. And as much as we love hearing from you, I have to say it warms my heart, as you know, when we hear from our students. Our student voices are so important. So keep sending them to us for board meetings. They really make the evening a little more interesting. But I do love all that you guys do, and I am so thankful for all of the presentations tonight. It sounds like the staff development day went really well. Kind of got to get my district on board with those lunch trucks. Geez, you guys are like on top of things here. But it sounds like they all got the training that they needed. It's good to see our kids doing something. I'm so proud of our volleyball girls. We're doing good things, and I can't wait to hear more on our student aspects as the year goes on. So thank you.
Thank you. And I too would like to extend my appreciation to all those folks that work in transportation, whether they're a driver or they're working in the transportation office, ironing out problems for students, families, and drivers, and our custodial staff for the outstanding job that they do for this district. And I'm especially grateful during COVID when the numbers haven't been there and yet they're getting the job done. And, and that's simply dedication. That is true dedication. I also want to take a moment and thank Reagan. And I don't know whose idea it was to bring Abby in, but great idea. Really liked it. And if that was you, Reagan, that was very smart. I want to say to Abby's mom, please tell Abby she did an outstanding job. I'm impressed anytime anyone can come in front of a group of people and present. It's not, I agree with Mrs. Papalardo, not an easy thing to do. And your daughter did it like she's been doing it forever. And for all I know, maybe she is. I don't know what you do at home, but it would appear that she's pretty comfortable presenting. So you should be very proud of her, but she should mostly be very proud of herself. She was very poised, and I'm very proud. I'm very proud to call her one of our kids here in Fulton. I'm very proud of all of our fall athletes. They give us lots of reasons to feel Fulton pride. And again, we are in many ways the center of our community. And so every time our kids step out and do something, it's worthy of being recognized because they are the center of how our community revolves. It revolves pretty much around our families in school. And I appreciate all of the reports tonight. There was a lot of material covered. I want to thank City for the Spotlight News. I found it very interesting. I was very pleased to see some of our Fulton students were included in the Spotlight from City. It's exciting to see the things that they're doing, but really pleases me to hear that they're pleased with the outcomes that they're achieving through that programming. And like the programming here, we have so much we offer. And as much as we cover it in board meetings, we still have a lot of folks that don't realize everything that we offer here in the Fulton School District. And so anytime, I'm going to plug it again. If anybody happens to see it lying around, pick it up, read it. You'll like it. A lot of good stuff there. And lastly, my thanks to everyone that's working with the vaccines. Mr. Ells, I thank you for being our expert. Mr. Polvino, I thank you for pushing. I thank all of our nurses. I'm grateful to everyone out in the community that's doing what they can to help us with this COVID issue so that COVID doesn't get in the way of our kids learning any more than it absolutely has to. And with that, I'm going to shut up and move my folks on to item number 7.2, 02, adjournment of the meeting.
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Periyama, yes.
Mrs. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mrs. Mainville,
Yes.
Mrs. Albagor,
Yes.
Mrs. Papalardo,
Yes.
and Mr. Cordone.
Yes.
Thank you. And to any and everyone that logged in tonight to join us, this board appreciates you taking the time, whether you're with us live tonight or you're viewing this at a later date. We appreciate you taking the time to learn more about the district and what's going on here. Hope you come back. And until next time, everybody, stay safe.
Night.
Night.
Good night.